I'm about to try to teach my mom what Chat GPT is. Let's see how this goes.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so have you heard of Chat GPT?
Of course.
Okay.
If you're on TikTok, I think if you're on, well, maybe it just depends on what TikTok you're on, because I just asked my girlfriends out of curiosity. They're all entrepreneurs. They all have online businesses. They all could definitely use this. And I asked them how many of them had just even heard the word or the phrase. And only 1 out of 9 had.
Yeah.
And I admittedly don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, I asked my followers over the weekend, and I think 11% had heard of it, and the other 89% hadn't even heard of it, which is interesting. Where did you hear about it? On TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't hear a thing about it on TikTok, but it was, or maybe it still is, trending on Twitter and has been for like a week.
When I saw the content on TikTok, it was, they were talking about different ways to use it to, and I'm sure it came up on my feed, to create a podcast. And I didn't really understand what it was, and I dismissed it until you said, "Hey mom, have you heard about this?" And probably you and I talking about it, like our phones are listening to us. And now I've gotten a couple more videos on it.
Yeah. Okay. So I was same thing. I saw it all over Twitter, and I was like, this is crazy. It's futuristic. It's trending, whatever, but it's going to die out. So I'm going to just dismiss it. But then I listened to like 5 podcasts on it. And then when I realized that like the New York Times podcast and some other like major podcasts,
entrepreneur, tech.
Yes. I was like, okay, like I'm going to learn a little bit more. So like the definition on Wikipedia is Chat GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. And the way I think about that is the first word generative basically just means it can generate its own responses and come up with its own answers. Pre-trained because it has been pre-trained, right? Like there are ultimately humans who had to pre-train it. But I think if most people's experience with AI is like Siri, or like talking to like Alexa from Amazon, that's most people's experience with this kind of chat model. When you start to actually use Chat GPT, it will blow your flipping mind. It's insane.
So how I would describe it, and you know more than I do, but I would describe it as an open source site. I don't know if you call it a site. An open source simply means that anyone can have access to improve it, to make it better. Kind of, I think Audacity is open site. So it just means that people who know how to code, people who know how to create artificial intelligent programs, bots, etc., they all have access to it. When that happens and no one's getting paid and everybody's collaborating, it can like get really good or really bad really fast. And from what I understand about, my understanding of it is like, it is like an open source website that has finally said, all this information everywhere on the internet, what if we had a bot or whatever intelligence that could like almost like like the smartest person on the planet and the quickest thinking person on the planet, you could say, hey, search the whole internet, make sense of this, and then write me a summary of every podcast that's ever been produced on fill in the blank. So that's kind of my understanding of it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good baseline understanding.
Can we access it by going to a website or an app?
It's a website. I think they have an app. I've only used their website. I just basically go to Google and I type in Chat GPT and it's free. So you put in your name and your email and it's totally free. And that's part of it right now is, like you said, it's open source. So they're trying to get as many people as they can to use it, because obviously the more people use it, the more they learn and the more they can rapidly improve it. So just like literally, I used it 2 days ago and I had a conversation with it, and then I accidentally closed my window and I was like, shoot, I wanted to like go back and I missed some of the things in that conversation. I wish I had saved it. And I asked Chat GPT like, hey, can you pull up our conversations from the past? And it said, sorry, we can't do that. Oh. But today when I logged in, it said, hey, we announced a new feature yesterday. It's now you can go back and view your chat history. So that just shows you like how fast it's improving right now.
So the piece that my first question was before I started looking is, who's behind this? Like, who owns this? Well, first of all, we should mention this just released the beginning of December. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I believe it was beginning of December or end of November. But here's the crazy thing. It took Instagram 75 days to get to 1 million users. It took Chat GPT 5 days. 5 days to get to 1 million users.
Yeah, because it has some scary potential. Like, I don't know. So here's what I did. I went to Google like you did. And I think because technology or whatever, marketers, I typed in chat, is it GPT, right?
GPT, yeah.
GPT. First, I typed in chat GPS. And I got a ton of websites that are already trying to pretend that they are Chat GPT. And that's the other thing is I found a ton of sites where I'm like, which one is it? And then I don't know if this is accurate. What's today's date? December 20th? As of December 20th, I was getting TikToks today that were saying that because of the overwhelming quick popularity of it, that new people don't even have access to it. So I'm wondering if that's why I can't find it.
I've heard that. Every time I've tried to go on it, it's worked. A few times it has crashed. Like a few times I've like asked it a question and it's got halfway through answering and then it just kind of froze. But if I close the window or I like reload it, it'll usually load back up. I listened to a few podcasts this weekend who were like, yeah, it's been overloaded. I can't get on. But it's weird. Every time I've personally tried to go on, it's worked right away. Even today, right before we started chatting, I pulled it up and it's loaded and sitting on my desktop right now.
We'll put a link to the actual site down below. But I just had this flash forward moment where we're going to come back and listen to ourselves talking about this and go, we're such dorks. Like I just have this feeling that this is going to be one of those those revolutionary things where it's like, okay, there's this new thing. It's called Google. Or like, you know, when they show clips of news anchors talking about like, so we have some exciting news about something they're calling the World Wide Web. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, and I feel like this is going to be one of those clips.
Yeah. So it's crazy what you can use it for. And we can talk all about, you know, like the potential problems with it, potential use cases, but I'll just give you some examples of how I used it. And I think the simplest way to think about it is just like a text message conversation. So it's a chat bot. You can type in a text-based question or prompt for it to answer, and it will do its best to search through the entire internet. I think everything up until 2022, I think they have it loaded through 2021. So it doesn't have the most current information, which was interesting because when I asked it some questions about Instagram, it brought up like IGTV, which hasn't been around in about a year. But anyways, you can ask it pretty much anything and it'll search through the entire internet and give you a result that's generated by itself. So it's not a pre-programmed result by the programmers. They haven't like written the responses. The AI, the artificial intelligence, is generating these responses itself. So can I give you an example of like some of the things I've asked it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one blew my mind and this relates to the podcast. I said, can you give me a few trending podcast episode ideas for a social media marketing podcast? And it gave me 10 bullet pointed out ideas, and I'll read you some of them. The power of influencer marketing. Explore how influencer marketing can help business owners reach new audiences and drive sales through social media. That was one of the titles it gave me. Here's another. Social media trends for 2023. Predictions for the biggest trends in social media marketing over the next year and how businesses can take advantage of them.
So far, those two titles are two shows that we've just recently produced.
Yes. So it's crazy. Like
we're on trend.
Yeah, it's coming up with these. Measuring the ROI of social media marketing, a discussion of how businesses can track and measure the return on investment of their social media marketing efforts. Like just coming up with these on its own. One interesting thing that I've noticed is it can't quite search through content yet. So I can't ask it to like listen to every podcast related to social media marketing and give me the biggest takeaways related to Instagram. I can't quite do that. But what I can do and what I have done is take transcriptions of podcasts and put those into Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So basically, it can't go listen itself, but you can give it the transcription.
Interesting. Okay, so that's very interesting. From what I understand, from, again, my limited knowledge, is that it is so advanced that it literally hears and, you know, can make sense of tone, emotion, tempo, like all of these things, not just in written content, but in spoken content, obviously, in news articles. So when I started thinking about like, oh my God, first of all, a negative is this could replace a lot of people's jobs, right? When I think about people who write for a living, people who research for a living, like for me, someone with ADHD who loves to get on a tangent and just research the hell out of something, that can be so time consuming. And I only know what I know. So I think that this could really, it could impact people's work, people who do that as consultants or for their job.
Yeah, totally. And I think it will. I don't think it'll be an immediate like loss of millions of jobs, but over the course of the next 5-10 years into the future, there's going to be a lot of jobs replaced by this. Myself personally, what I did, and this is a real example, I took the transcription from one of my YouTube videos.
Okay.
So I just YouTube provides transcriptions of everything that you post on YouTube. So I just literally copied everything that I said. I pasted it into Chat GPT, and above the transcription, I typed, write me a 15 bullet point summary of the following text in complete sentences. And it gave me 15 bullet points in complete text of summarizing what I just said in that YouTube video. And they were smart summaries too. It wasn't just like, like it didn't pull out my intro and make my intro an important part of the summary. Like it hit on the 15 important bullet points. And then I said, turn this 15 bullet point summary into a marketing email written in a casual tone. And it wrote me a 3-paragraph marketing email written in a casual tone that summarized the 15 bullet points from the YouTube video. And I literally copied and pasted that into my email marketing campaign.
So it was that good. Like even, when you hire a real person, a lot of times you ask them to do this assignment, you're going to have to review what it is they've written to make sure, like, is this consistent? What was your interpretation of what they generated for you?
It wasn't perfectly in my tone. Granted, I didn't ask it or give it like my examples of writing in the past, but it was exactly what I asked for. It was casual, conversational. It hit all the bullet points. And exactly like you said, like there were a few things I had to tweak and a few minor things that I wanted to like make more in my lingo, but it was spot on, even to the point where I added a phrase. I said, and end with a call to action, directing people to watch the full YouTube video. And it added in that, and it said, click down here to watch the full video. And it like added the call to action to the bottom of the email.
Dude.
It freaking blew my mind.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay. So I watched an example of someone who said, watch, I can say, give me recipes I can make with the ingredient jackfruit. And it gave him all these recipes. And then he selected one and said, show me this recipe in a grid form. So that it showed him the recipe, like breaking down, like in this, it said the quantity, the amount, what you do with it. And then he said, and it was in real time. It wasn't like it took a long time for the AI to populate the response. And then in real time, he said, turn this recipe into a shopping list. And then it turned it into like a shopping list with the exact quantities of each item to buy. To me, that is mind blowing. That's something that normally would take, an hour at least for someone to do.
Yeah, totally. And we think of like what a current search engine can do, because that's another similarity. So Google, you search something on Google, you're going to get a bunch of different links, and then it's up to you to like search through each of those
and create the file and create the and create the formats, all of those things. Like it feels like a person is doing this for you in like the speed of light.
Yeah, it's so fast. That's the other thing, is it's so fast. It's kind of like, when you search something on Google and Google like gives you a result that's above everything else, that's like a little bit of text, and it's basically Google saying like, this is the right answer, but really they're just pulling it out of some article. It's like that, but it's doing that rather than just from one article. It's summarizing all the information from every article that's been fed over the millions and millions of data points it's been given over the past few years.
I mean, right now I'm thinking about all the research and time that went into creating our episode we did on predictions for 2023 in social media. And I wonder, I'm going to go now and see like because AI, we assume is smarter than us, right? Because it's taking in everybody's opinions, but does it include those nuances that aren't showing up on the internet, especially when it comes to trends and predictions? Like you said, it's only including information up to 2022 and not all the way through 2022. So does it take into account the fact that things are trending in a certain way that hasn't even showed up in its database yet? And I would assume not yet.
Yeah, that's my assumption. And from my best understanding, when you ask it to predict things in the future, it kind of struggles,
Mm.
especially because it's, the data isn't up to the current, you know, day and time. But I asked it just now while you were talking. I typed in, what do you think will be trending on Instagram in 2023? And it's still typing right now. It's already written out 5 bullet points. So it said, basically, it started by saying, like, it's difficult to predict the future. However, here's what may emerge in 2023. Number one, personal branding and influencer marketing. As more people turn to social media to
Oh,
promote
it
their
even
personal
expands
brand,
on it.
yeah, and
Mhm.
share their experience, influencer marketing is likely to grow in popularity. Number three, user generated content. Authentic, relatable content is more popular with wide audiences than what is professionally produced. Expect there to see more brands encouraging their followers to share their own user generated content featuring their products and services.
These are like 3 so far that we included. Wow. So that makes me wonder. I don't know if you've ever done this. If you've typed in, I'm trying to think of something recently. I was prescribed a medication, and I typed it in Google to find out like what side effects there were, and I found that there were probably 9 different popular sites, and word for word, it was all the same information, exactly the same, exactly the same. Like I don't know if they're all paying like one um, writer or one source, but like all of the major quote unquote health popular websites all have exactly the same text. So it makes me wonder if a tool like this means we're going to see a lot of this. Like if people and companies start using a lot, is everyone going to be offering the same information because it's right off of Chat GPT?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would imagine that in some cases where it's like fact-based evidence, like the side effects of a common drug, you might use Chat GPT, or a lot of these websites might, because it's going to be the same information. It doesn't necessarily matter as much
Mm-hmm.
how it's written. But I think on something like a blog or something that's like a marketing email, I think that's where you can get into a tricky situation if you're not staying true to your own tone and your own branding.
So the people who really will benefit from using this is figuring out the
Yeah.
right way to use it so that you're still getting unique content and not just the same thing that everybody else typed in and they got that answer.
Yeah.
I also wonder if, so for example, is it going to show us, like I don't almost, I'm reluctant to mention some possible negative uses, and my brain even went here, but like, could I type in that I want the home address for said celebrity?
Mhm.
Here we go.
Um, Yeah, well, let's ask it. What's Lady Gaga's home address? I will say that the creators, the programmers, they do have some safeguards built in. So if you ask ChatGPT like, "How do I build a bomb?" it won't
Mm,
tell you, and in fact,
mm,
its response won't just be like,
Sorry, I don't have the answer. It will say like it kind of almost like passive aggressively or
or like kind of like it's judging you for asking that question. Like you shouldn't
mm.
ask that sort of thing. People have asked it. I saw someone asked like, who was the best Nazi? Like they were trying to provoke ChatGPT, and they said,
who is the best Nazi? And Chat GPT was like basically something along the lines of like, I'm not going to answer that question.
and to ask if or who the best Nazi is implying that the people who created a mass genocide did it, and like kind of instructed them or corrected them in an educational way, but also kind of told them off a little bit.
Mm.
But of
So, Brock,
course,
that makes me curious. Like, how will this be monitored? So, for example, if there's a political opinion and people are kind of divided about something, could Chat GPT be like the ultimate answer? Like, and who's monitoring it so that things don't become? I mean, where's the morality or the
right.
ethics, or because it's open source?
Yeah, so I think that's the one of the major challenges and concerns around AI and Chat GPT is ultimately its ethics and its morals are based
Off the people who program it. And it can learn and it can change and grow over time, but ultimately it's only based off of the biases of the people
programming it and the biases of the data it's already been given. So I asked it about Lady Gaga, and it said, "I'm sorry, it is not appropriate to disclose personal information such as someone's home address online. It's important to respect people's privacy and not to share that personal information without consent."
Will you ask it how tall Shalene Johnson is?
Yeah. How tall is Shane? But also to speak on the fact of like political things, obviously, since it's not up to 2022, asking it super
relevant questions, like super trending or happening now questions, it might struggle with that answer. because it's not as current. It's still a year behind. So here's what it said about how tall Shalene Johnson.
So it didn't give your exact height. It said Shalene Johnson is an American entrepreneur, fitness expert, and author who is known for her fitness programs and workouts. It's not publicly known how tall Shalene Johnson is, but it is not appropriate to disclose someone's personal information such as height or weight without their consent.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I can find it on Google.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. I think I feel like it might be on Wikipedia.
Hey, let me, we didn't prepare for this, but if I were to challenge you to think of ways that entrepreneurs could use this to save them and or make them money, what are some ideas that come to mind for you?
I think just ways I've already used it myself. So summarizing long form content. That's summarizing a YouTube video or a podcast and breaking it down into really small bite-sized chunks that you could then reuse. So you could ask Chat GPT to create bullet points, say from a YouTube video, and then you could take each of those bullet points and say, hey, expand on each of these and turn them into a script for a short video. That's another thing I've done is I've taken the bullet points from a long video and turned them into bullet points for a short video. I've also had it do a lot of research for me. So I've had it do a lot of research into trends, what's happening within the market, what's going on with Instagram and Twitter. And
I think about the fact that I could use every single Shalene Show podcast. I could just enter that transcript and ask it to turn it into a blog. I'd be curious to see if I could ask them to summarize that blog and give it the total number of words I wanted it condensed to. Research for the topics that I spend so much time doing research for all of the shows, whether it's, our business podcast, Build Your Tribe, which, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be linked below. And the research that I do for the Shalene Show, which is all like lifestyle stuff, and it's all over the place. I think it could be really an interesting case to use it to rewrite blogs that I have done in the past, or to go through past content and look for I wonder if it could find things that are outdated.
I bet it could. So I asked you right now, I said, write a 300-word essay on podcast influencers, and it's writing, and it just started. Podcast influencers are individuals who have significant followings on podcast platforms and use their platforms to share their thoughts, experiences, and it's writing me a whole essay on it. But yeah, you could say that something that specifically. It's crazy.
I think also, we do so much split testing, right? And that's very expensive as entrepreneurs to do split testing. Like we've got to pay Facebook, TikTok, Instagram for these ads. But if we could ask AI to report back on some of those findings for us ahead of time, we could avoid doing that. I wonder if it shares with you, like even, I don't know, best rates or how to negotiate, like how to write an email to negotiate the best rate for work as a consultant, or it's just pretty remarkable to think about anything that I think basically as an entrepreneur, what's exciting about this technology, and we'll see where it goes, is that any question that pops into your head that you don't know the answer to, you could literally go there and type it and get a perhaps more valid response there than you could by being involved in a very large network of experienced entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that that brings up kind of another challenge or concern that a lot of people have, which is trusting the AI as kind of like the voice of God or like the universal best answer.
Yeah.
Even though they say on the website, like it's going to be wrong sometimes. And from most interviews I've heard, it's wrong maybe 1 out of
10 times. So 9 out of 10 times it's right, but sometimes it doesn't make sense or gives you a wrong answer.
And so that's going to be interesting, right? When AI starts to contradict things that are known as facts, because it's pulling its information from the wrong sources. Also, we talked about it's only going to be as good as where it's getting its information from. Granted, it's getting a really wide, diverse pool of data and information. But like one
example someone gave is they asked it, hey, Chat GPT, write me a love story. Write me a short love story. And it wrote a love story about a couple named Jack and Jill, and they did all these things. They fell in love, whatever. And someone brought up after the story was done being told, like
Chat GPT on its own decided to make a heterosexual couple with male female. And so it's doing that probably because the majority of the stories it's read are male female. But that just kind of, it brings up this thought of like, okay, well, it's only going to be a mirror of the data we're giving it.
Ask Chat GPT who is hosting Chat GPT and who originally purchased that domain?
I'll ask it. While it's answering that, it gave me a 6-paragraph answer to the tips for negotiating rates as a design consultant. And it started them out with like short little bullet points, and then it kind of gave sentences explaining what each of them were. So it said, number 1, research your market. Number 2, know your value. Number 3, be open to negotiation. Number 4, consider the scope of your project. Clearly communicate terms and conditions. Then finally, don't be afraid to walk away. And then it gave like kind of a detailed explanation of each of those.
I wonder, you know, that's one response, but I wonder if you could hit refresh and you got like a different version.
There's a button at the bottom that says regenerate response.
Yeah. That's so cool. What'd you just find?
So I asked it about who hosts it and where was the domain name purchased. And it said, I'm sorry, I'm not able to provide information about the hosting or ownership of a specific domain as I do not have access to that information. Domain names are registered and maintained through the registrars, which are private organizations. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this is pretty exciting, Brock. Any predictions that we can look back on, like maybe a year from now and go like, woof, were we off? Or wow, we were dead on.
Yeah. So I think that it's going to be really cool to use this for ideas, really great for research and summary. But I think that the best answers always come from the best questions. So I think it's the people who just spend time playing around on Chat GPT. Like even us in this 30-minute conversation, we've come up with new questions for it. I think the people who just spend some time playing around with it and asking questions are going to learn how to get the most out of it. But I think what's going to be really interesting is once it's able to create things that are more than just text, right? So if I could ask it, hey, create me, like, so I have it give me a 6 steps to negotiating your rates. I say, hey, turn this into a poster with black text on a yellow background and some basic graphics. Like that's going to be really interesting because there's already image-based artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, but when these two things kind of have their baby and they merge together, so I'm able to use this text and have it automatically turn into an image or even a video, like that's going to be mind-blowing for content creation.
Do you think it will remain free?
That's what's...
No, I don't even know. Does something that's open source like this, does it have the ability to be purchased, I assume? Like, I just don't know enough about this side of tech.
I don't know either. I would assume it's going to stay free, but I also could see it switching to like a membership model where you pay a certain monthly fee. But if their goal, which I believe one of their goals is making it available for all people, I would assume they're going to keep it free. And we think about something like Google, right? Like I'm sure 20 years ago, a lot of people were like, yeah, Google's free for now, but it's not going to be free forever. I mean, as of now, Google is still free to use. So it'll be interesting. I don't know.
And is it just US based at the moment?
I don't believe so. I think it's worldwide.
Wow. All right. So we'll wait and see. We've got it could be really, really exciting. Or we could look back on this recording and go, wow, we had no idea.
Either way, it'll be fun to look back on this recording.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for filling me in. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this YouTube video educational. And let me know down in the comments what you think about artificial intelligence. What do you think about Chat GPT? And if you're watching this far into the future, then please don't roast me. I'm sure this video was pretty funny to watch looking back on it.